I'm Kate Marr. I am the proud colleague of two of the panelists, Monica and Erica, and I'm also the executive director of Community Legal Aid SoCal, serving Southeast Los Angeles and Orange County. And it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Conway Collis is the president and CEO of the Mayor's Fund for Los Angeles, a role he assumed this spring. Between 2013 and 2021, Conway served as the founding president and CEO of Grace End Child Poverty California, where he led the development and implementation of a statewide plan that resulted in more than 290,000 California children and families moving out of poverty between 2019 and 2020. Conway's commitment to public service and poverty elimination is longstanding. Previously, he was counsel on the U.S. Senate Committee on Labor and Public Welfare, working on domestic social programs. He was the founding board chair of the National Foster Youth Institute from 2012 to 2021, co-chaired the California Lifting Children and Families Out of Poverty Task Force, and chaired the State Senate Bipartisan Task Force on Homelessness. Thank you for joining us today, Conway.
Kate, thank you. Thank you very much, both for your long service with legal services and now with community legal services. And John Levy, I've got to thank you for reaching out, and to all of you for the chance to talk a little bit. I've got to tell you that speaking to legal services today is kind of a full circle for me, because everything I've done over the last 50 years or so is because I was not hired by CRLA out of law school, which is my dream job. I did end up, as Kate mentioned, as a counsel on the U.S. Senate Labor and Public Welfare Committee, and that's relevant to legal services because the committee was the committee of jurisdiction over the confirmation of the first board of directors for the Legal Services Corporation and confirmation of the first president of Legal Services. And I ended up as the lead staffer on that process. And Senator Alan Cranston from California, Ted Kennedy, Walter Mondale, Jacob Javits, the folks that had been deeply committed to legal services for years, helped to form the corporation in order to protect legal services and ensure its continuity. I got to mention one thing about that, which I think takes us to today, and that is that at the time, another member of the committee was known as the most conservative member of the United States Senate at that time. He was the former governor of Nevada, Paul Laxalt, Reagan's best friend in the Senate, been sued many times by legal services in Nevada and had a great deal of antipathy because of that. And think about this happening today. One person who was nominated for the board of legal services had been Reagan's attorney to cut CRLA, a lifetime opponent of legal services, and was obviously on the board to do some damage. And he became the first person to not be confirmed by the committee. And Laxalt actually looked at the evidence, looked at it in a lawyer-like way, and voted against the guy. And then he supported increased appropriations for legal services. I just mention that because think about what it's like today and how much the world has changed. But one thing that hasn't changed is the importance of legal services and the dedication of legal service attorneys. That's been a constant for all of these years. And the question now is, and I think you heard about it from this wonderful panel, is how do we maximize that impact? How do we maximize the impact of legal services? Because there is a shortage. And as much as we may want and all support vehemently right to counsel, the fact is we're nowhere close to that. There's currently an attorney in Los Angeles available for about 10% of the people who have been served with a notice of eviction. So how do we maximize the impact? And the answer, and again, you've heard a lot of it, is for legal services to be part of a coordinated system, to work together with outreach, with case management, with referral to legal services, to everyone working together, and also to look for ways that things can be done that perhaps don't require an attorney. So when Mayor Bass took office and wanted to focus, as she must, on addressing homelessness, her homeless plan is essentially three parts. It's prevention, moving people from the streets into temporary and permanent housing, and access to legal services to prevent evictions wherever possible. And you've heard a lot about Stay Housed. Stay Housed is an incredibly crucial program formed by the Board of Supervisors in the previous mayoral administration. And everything we do is built on this enormous foundation that Stay Housed has in place. So the Mayor's Fund is, we're an independent 501c3, but we're the Mayor's Fund. And the mayor is formally our formal advisor to our board. And she wanted us to put in place something that would be built upon this enormous foundation of Stay Housed, in a sense to stand on their shoulders. And so we formed We Are LA. And We Are LA is, first of all, outreach. And it's outreach by community members. And it's formed in terms of how we target the outreach. And the last 3 months, there's been outreach, which we define as an actual discussion with someone, to just over 170,000 at-risk Angelenos. And when someone is identified, and they're identified, as Alma's indicated, in some of the same ways of phone calling and door knocking, and then we also do a good deal of outreach directly to community centers and community groups and community meetings and churches, and even working the Department of Motor Vehicle lines in every way where people are gathered. And the outreach is determined by a combination of, we get lists directly from the Superior Court on each of the zip codes where eviction filings have taken place over the last week. And the city receives and able to report actual addresses. Now, they're not the names, they're not the apartment numbers, but the addresses. And so we merge the addresses, we compare them to where over the last week there have been the most number of filings, and we compare those two. And then once a person has indicated they do need help, they're referred directly, person to person, to a caseworker. Caseworker can be a promotora, it can be a benefit navigator at a health center, it could be a social work student who's working part-time on this. But the key to the casework, and that's really the key to the whole process, is that it's based on a promotora or promised neighborhood model. And what that means is there's an assessment of the person, a tenant, for what they need, and all of the federal, state, or local programs that they may be eligible for. And then to directly sign up that person, not say, here's a website or go do this, but directly work with a person to actually get them signed up. And that's crucial, because the evidence is, and our experience is, people are leaving as much as $3,000 a month on the table in benefits they're already entitled to, but didn't know about, or afraid to apply for, don't know how to apply. And so that piece is crucial, because that's the difference between being able to pay rent and not. The other thing that the caseworkers are doing through new tools that are available is, when there's been a UD filing, they're able to actually file the answer with the court, working with the person. It doesn't actually take an attorney. Actually, Legal Aid Foundation has provided the training, or the tools for the training, so that the caseworkers can do that directly. But then, of course, at some point, folks need a lawyer. And the problem is the courts analyzed that there'll be about 35,000 evictions in the city of LA this year. Now, Mayor Bass will be successful in moving people from the streets into housing. She will get, I think, to over 20,000 this year. It's an enormous effort. But that still means that unless we stem the flow of people being evicted, we're always going to be falling behind. So the lawyer for 10% of the people who are served with a notice of eviction. So what that means is that we've also needed to focus on the recruitment of pro bono private attorneys. And the mayor has been extremely active in this. We've currently recruited just under 100 pro bono attorneys. We've got another meeting coming up for the mayor to recruit directly people. And LAFLA has provided a lot of the training as part of those sessions and handled all of the administration. We're providing a little over $1 million led by LAFLA, also to Neighborhood Legal Aid, and then a couple of non-legal service entities, Betzedek and Inner-City Law Center, to actually provide the direction and coordination for the pro bono attorneys. And it's a way that we think will about double the number of attorney hours that are available to serve people in need. So this is all a start, and it's a very good model. It's a model that needs to be replicated. The coordination between outreach, full scope casework, and access, expanded access to legal services through having legal services coordinate the availability of pro bono attorneys. So I just want to leave you with, I think, two thoughts. The first is that what's been shown in LA through the foundation of Stay Housed, through the ways that We Are LA has built on that, it's provided a model that ought to be replicated across the country where it doesn't currently exist. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think, close with a thank you to legal services attorneys. There's a quote from St. Francis of Assisi, a Catholic saint, but I always thought that his words have meaning for folks of any religion or none at all. He said, preach the gospel, use words if necessary. Well, lawyers use lots of words, but the fact is, for legal services attorneys, I think that what you do is live your belief in the greater good, and for that, I thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.